Hello Legionnaires, this is Max Leow from Legionnaire, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Illusionist Discipline in the Earthdawn 4th edition role-playing game. If you have not watched my previous video titled Earthdawn Disciplines and Adepts, an overview, I suggest you take a look at it as it explains the nuances of what it means to be an adept who follows a discipline in the Earthdawn role-playing game. I'll post a link to that video in the description below. I also encourage you to watch my previous videos on the Swordmaster and the Weaponsmith. As with all of the episodes in the series, I will be discussing the Illusionist primarily in terms of 4th edition Earthdawn. 4th edition is the most recent version of the game, and thus the most appropriate version to discuss. Where 4th edition information is lacking or where comparisons need to be made, I'll revert to and identify previous editions as needed. Now, I have to tell you that I cannot believe that I'm making this video at this time. For the sake of honesty, I need to tell you that I went into creating this episode under some protest or duress. I was kind of cajoled into making it. First of all, my free time is at a severe premium right now, to say the least, and the magician disciplines require a bit more research than others. I mean, as it is, these videos are coming out much more slowly and a bit more rushed than I had hoped. With that in mind, I want to thank everyone for the positive response to these videos, and of course for correcting those niggling mistakes, those little Persian flaws that keep creeping up on occasion. Secondly, I have never liked the Illusionist discipline. While I find the idea and concept intriguing, and I've played many an Illusionist in AD&D and other games, I've always found the majority of the spells and talents for the Earthdawn Illusionist to be too niche, too gimmicky, and in some cases downright silly, which is something I cannot abide in an RPG akin to Earthdawn, Palladium, or Dungeons & Dragons. I have to admit that I openly discourage players from choosing the Illusionist, for both my sanity as a GM and for their expectations and experiences as a player. In fact, the only Illusionist that I've GM'd was a human thief back in 1st edition who used versatility to gain the required talents to cast illusion spells safely. So before making this video, I had glanced at the 4th edition Illusionist, more in regard to illusions and how they work than regarding the discipline itself. But I certainly didn't know the discipline, nor did I want to. I just don't like the Illusionist, and I have less than zero interest in it. With those two key knowledges out in the open, I reluctantly agreed to create this Illusionist discipline video. Think of this as an external challenge from my critics and an internal one to myself. A challenge to take a new look at the Illusionist discipline in order to better understand it in its 4th edition iteration, and really to help me be a better Earthdawn GM. Alright, with that out of the way, let's find out if the opinion of this judgmental curmudgeon who fears change and is stuck in his way has changed, for better or for worse. Let us now unveil the truth of the Illusionist. As always, let's start with the background and worldview of the Illusionist. What is the Illusionist? A magician? A liar? A charlatan? A trickster? Someone who preys on the weak and gullible? Let's answer this as an Illusionist would. Yes, but mostly no. First and foremost, and admittedly, just like the other magician disciplines, the Illusionist seeks the truth. Unlike the other magician disciplines, who use their knowledge and senses to learn of the world or worlds around them, the Illusionist understands that the truth isn't always what it seems. Perception may be reality, but it is not truth. Illusionists are entertainers at heart and love showing off their abilities to lighten the hearts of other name-givers, as well as providing lessons on how to perceive the truth. While they often do charge or accept tips and donations for their entertainment services, no true illusionist will bilk an innocent out of his or her life savings or make destitute a wealthy merchant. Illusionists do not deliberately use their craft to cause harm. The true purpose of the illusionist is not merely to entertain, but to instruct other name-givers to not trust their senses to tell them the truth. Horrors and charlatans can easily fool you, so questioning the face value of something is a sign of a healthy mind. Illusions that cause pain or cost someone money are done for the greater benefit of all. In an illusionist's mind, If the magic causes harm, it's only the harm people allow on themselves. Often ridiculed and despised for these lessons and point of view, an illusionist cannot stop trying to teach people how to see. The discipline demands helping people who need to look a little harder at the world around them. An illusionist perfects his craft through experience and practice. One cannot know the truth without living in the wide world. How can you create an effective illusion without actually experiencing the subject of your craft? Besides, any illusionist worth his salt enjoys investigating oddities and irregularities in order to understand them. An illusionist will try almost anything once, adding new senses and emotions to the craft for later use in illusions. Whatever the experience, no matter how routine or mundane, always try to puzzle out a little more of the world. Illusions of sight and sound are easy. Smell, taste, and touch are more difficult. This is where experience will lend credit to the craft and strength to the magic. Now, this can come from experiencing the subject directly, or it can be derived from anecdotes and accounts of name givers who have experienced the subject, peeling away the onion to find the core truth, so to speak. Along with experience, the illusionist must constantly practice. Experience the subject, incorporate what you have learned, practice that knowledge, and perfect your craft to ensure subtle mistakes don't give away your illusions. So, how does one become an illusionist? Typically, guides are what the trainers of the illusionist discipline are called, seek out would-be initiates who seem to naturally possess a keener eye for what is real than most. The potential initiate is then targeted with illusions designed to distract or terrify. If these tests are passed satisfactorily, and the target is willing, the guide takes to training the initiate in the ways of the illusionist discipline. No two guides are the same or teach the same way. However, with that said, a couple of universal themes do exist. The first theme is that guides rarely provide information as fact. Rather, they confront the student with problems and questions that guide the student to a new level of awareness. Guides typically encourage free thinking, no matter how radical. Secondly, training is meant to drive an initiate to complete distraction. Training teaches the initiate to no longer accept things as real simply because you see and hear them, and to become very thorough and quick at testing reality. To ensure successful training, illusionist trainers are almost always of a significantly higher circle than the student. Here's a paraphrased excerpt from the first edition supplement, The Adepts Way. A third circle swordmaster may very well be able to instruct a swordmaster of first or second circle, but not so an illusionist. A student rarely learns anything of value from a guide of less than 3 circles above his or her own level of ability. Most of the time, the difference is 5 circles or more. Finally, circle advancement for the illusionist is tailored to the individual and typically involves recognizing false threats versus real threats. All right, that was a quick background on what it means to be an illusionist adept. 2 things I'm really not going to explore with any depth are charlatans and phantasms. As for charlatans, think of them as illusionists who use their abilities for the sole purpose of lining their pockets. At best, they're lazy, at worst, evil. Either way, they'd never be allowed in my game as a PC. To me, the character's a walking discipline violation who would suffer from a permanent talent crisis. Phantasms, on the other hand, are rumored to be illusionists who have found truth beyond the flesh. Some illusionists believe in them, others do not. Are they real? Are they rumor? That's for you to decide in your own game. So, what does it mean to be the illusionist player? What should you expect if you choose illusionist as your character's discipline? I think the easiest way to say it is the illusionist discipline is for the player or party who wants to avoid combat. It's for the player with a creative mind and lends itself quite well to a player who prefers role-playing and social interaction. The first thing to know about the illusionist is that not every spell is an illusion, and not every word is a lie, whether it's said by the illusionist or to the illusionist. Anecdotally, the biggest issue I've run into when I've seen illusionist players in the past is this drive to be some sort of con artist and trickster, sowing dissension wherever he or she goes. That's not the point of the illusionist. Remember, Earthdawn Adepts are heroes and should act like it, An illusionist doesn't mess with people just for grins. The illusionist tricks targeted individuals specifically to teach them that reality is not always what it seems. There's a lesson to be taught, and illusionists are open about these lessons. That does not mean she can't get a certain type of enjoyment from bringing the truth to someone, especially a criminal, the metaphorically blind, or a charlatan. It just means that a disciplined illusionist takes her craft more seriously than the public and many players like to believe. The illusionist talents are a well-balanced mix of charisma, perception, and willpower. It's often considered vital for any magician to have high perception and willpower, but I really feel you do the illusionist a disservice without at least considering charisma. In fact, personally, I'd put charisma over willpower, though your mileage may vary. The first couple of circles provide the illusionist the same talents all magicians receive, along with talents to both improve the strength of illusions and the ability to see through illusions. After that, the illusionist receives a mix of talents to obfuscate the truth, reveal the truth, and assist in spellcasting. As a journeyman, the fifth circle illusionist can create a figment, an obvious illusory scene, to improve future interaction tests with people who view it. The ninth circle warden illusionist can hide the fact she's even casting a spell, as long as it's not a damage spell. Finally, the 13th circle master illusionist can break the boundaries between what is real and what is an illusion by turning real spells illusory and illusions real. That sounds awesome. Moving on, let us now talk about illusionist spells. Illusionist spells come in many shapes and sizes: buffs, debuffs, obfuscation, seeing through obfuscation, I'm saying that word a lot, mimicking, mind-altering, and damaging. Whether real or illusory, each spell comes with the flair and feel of the illusionist discipline. I'm not fully sold on the idea of the illusionist mimicking spells from other disciplines, not because I think it's inappropriate. On the contrary, I believe it's perfectly appropriate and should be done more. I just think it's too easy to disbelieve those spells. Yeah, so that's a wizard spell? He's an illusionist? Yeah, I disbelieve. Yes, I oversimplified that scenario, and personally I'm very anti-metagaming, but the idea is still the same. Now, illusionist spells come in three forms: figments, illusions, and real spells. Figments are obvious magical effects and are easily seen for what they are. Any interaction with a figment reveals it for the illusion that it is. Illusions are more realistic and are much harder to discern, but they hold no real power once discovered. Sensing tests are required to discover the illusory nature of the magic, though in 4th edition, many standard actions and tests will double as sensing tests. Real spells are just that, real effects that cannot be disbelieved. In fact, it'd be quite painful to try and disbelieve a real magic damage spell, as disbelieving lowers the non-believer's mystic defense to 2. One really neat feature of the illusionist is the ability to place true versions of certain spells in the same spell matrix as the illusory version, allowing the illusionist to safely determine which version to cast, while not having to waste one matrix for each version. For example, Ephemeral Bolt and True Ephemeral Bolt may be placed in the same matrix, after which the illusionist may choose which version he intends to cast. This gives the illusionist the appropriate and needed flexibility to perform his craft. Per quick chat with Josh Harrison, the rules regarding the extra threads in spellcasting effectively extends the life of spells. For example, a 10th circle illusionist can use lower circle spells and still remain just as effective as when these spells match the character's circle. Basically, you don't need spells of circle 9 or higher to remain viable at circle 9 or higher. In this, he and I agree. In fact, while I have some major complaints and disagreements about how 4th edition, when compared to previous editions, has handled the damage spells of the various magician disciplines, overall, within the 4th edition construct, the spells are very well balanced and well chosen for the disciplines. They work wonderfully. To get back on track here, while Circle 9 through 15 spells are planned for a future publication, along with additional lower circle spells for each of the disciplines, they are not inherently necessary for higher circle magicians at this time. I can only hope that this future publication includes spell creation rules similar to those found in the first edition sourcebook, Magic, a Manual of Mystic Secrets. While those specific rules were problematic, the general idea and process was a good one. I hope 4th edition finds a way to refine them and add them. Moving on to half magic. In Earthdawn, half magic represents discipline-pertinent knowledge and skills a character knows or can perform simply by being an adept of that discipline. In this case, the illusionist adept can attempt to use half magic to recognize different types of magic use, as well as specific uses of illusion magic. They may also use half magic to get to the truth of any situation. In my games, I'll also let an illusionist use half magic to resist distractions. Continue on to discipline violations. With great power comes, well, some rules. Remember from my overview video that disciplines are not character classes, professions, or archetypes. They are lifestyles. And while the personal vision of each adept may differ, there are some foundations that must remain. An illusionist must not rely too heavily on real magic. The first edition guideline was the illusionist should cast approximately 2 illusions per every real spell. While a good rule of thumb, personally, I don't like exact numbers like that. In my head, I thought it more like, don't use real magic when an illusion will do. That way it's left up to the player and the GM to work together to understand the situation at hand. Next, an illusionist must not take the world around her at face value. An illusionist who accepts everything she sees, or should I say senses, as truth for a week or more is guilty of a violation. Lastly, and this is a personal one to me in my games, an illusionist must not be a charlatan. There's a purpose to being an illusionist and in casting illusory magic, to teach people to see through lies and deception, to find the truth. Acting like a chaotic neutral Loki wannabe or the next jokey smurf, or intentionally bilking people of money and property just because, is a violation in my game. As with every discipline, not every illusionist is the same. Once that foundation is met, personal visions reign supreme. So let's talk about a couple of variations on the theme. By their very nature, illusionists creatively push the boundaries of the discipline's foundation with their diverse and varied personal visions. However, with some help from my wife, okay, they're effectively her ideas, we came up with 2 very distinguishable personal visions that we feel border on being specialists of the illusionist discipline, in the same vein as the gallant and bladesmen are swordmaster specialists. The first personal vision is what I have labeled the profiler. The profiler is an illusionist that focuses on the subtleties of the brain and mind, the psychology of name givers. Psychological and mental manipulation in lieu of bombastic and colorful displays. The profiler believes in learning everything in terms of the brain, mind, and psyche of name givers, and in perfecting the manipulations of the mind to reach the truth of any situation. Profilers distort reality less through spells and environmental obfuscation, though those abilities are not outside their capabilities, but more through subtle persuasions and deceptions of the mind. A manipulative word here or noticing a tell there. Don't play poker with one, you'll lose. Profilers strive to perfect the art of cold reading and will ultimately know the truth of another better than that individual knows himself. In game mechanics terms, the profiler focuses on talents over spells, only taking the free matrices provided. She also prefers the charisma and perception attributes over willpower. Of the novice optional talents, the profiler takes, in alphabetical order, arcane mutterings, mimic voice or speak language, taunt, and winning smile. Of the journeyman optional talents, the profiler takes, again in alphabetical order, engaging banter, frighten, resist taunt, and sloth blame. As for spell casting, the profiler takes spells along the lines of assuring touch, trust, mind fog, and fog of jeer. This does not preclude her from any other spell to which an illusionist has access. It only provides a theme toward the type of spell she prefers. Remember, she gets into the head and psyche of her target. I have to tell you that I'm truly interested in playing the profiler illusionist. The second personal vision, borderline specialist of the Illusionist Discipline is the Prestidigitator. The Prestidigitator focuses on spellcasting magic and glamour powers of the Illusionist Discipline. The Prestidigitator is predisposed to the manipulations of the senses and the perfection of illusions. When deceiving, the more subtle and realistic the illusion, the better. When entertaining, the more senses reached and the more intense, the better. Depending on the circumstance, it's either never realistic enough or it's never grandiose enough. Of the novice optional talents, the Prestidigitator takes, in alphabetical order, Astral Sight, Deadfall, Spell Matrix, and Stealthy Stride. Of the journeyman optional talents, the Prestidigitator takes, in alphabetical order, Dispel Magic, Enhance Matrix, Steel Thought, and Tenacious Weave. As for spellcasting, the Prestidigitator takes spells along the lines of Best Face, Monstrous Mantle, Innocent Activity, and Phantom Warrior. Again, this does not preclude her from taking any other spell to which an illusionist has access. It only provides a theme towards the type of spell she prefers. If those two concepts don't get the brain juices flowing, use your real-world Google Food to search 4th edition Earthdawn Illusionist, and I'm sure you'll find plenty of ideas for your character's personal vision. As normal, I'm not going to talk about multidiscipline combinations, their advantages, and their effects. But I will mention that when taking on a second discipline, the illusionist leans towards the thief and troubadour, and stays away from nearly everything else. The other magician disciplines require too much real magic, while the physical disciplines tend to have, well, physical requirements the illusionist may struggle with. Archers in particular do not like the illusionist philosophy, and so probably the rarest combination. Ultimately, the illusionist will be fun for the role player who wishes to express creativity in gameplay. So, after all this, what's my final verdict? Am I a reformed man? Have I been convinced to accept the illusionist as a discipline worthy of my games and of my time? Well, to tell you the truth, I've re-looked at the illusionist discipline multiple times during the making of this video, and I really wanted to find that aha moment where I could confirm my convictions or fall in love with the discipline. On the plus side, the illusionist discipline and the workings of illusions in general have apparently been completely overhauled for 4th edition. Thank you. While the original illusionist concept remains, the mechanics and capabilities are changed for the better. You will not hear this from me often, as I'm a curmudgeon who fears change, and I stand by 1st edition in most things. But 4th edition really did improve the illusionist and the handling of illusions as a whole. I like the changes. The 4th edition illusionist feels like a viable discipline to me with viable and interesting abilities. On the minus side, I guess this is just not the discipline for me. I still find some of the spells rather silly, though not nearly as bad as in previous editions. And I have to admit I'm still turned off by the players I've witnessed playing the illusionist at both conventions and local groups. If you play your illusionist as a laugh at other people's expense trickster, I'll go out on a limb with this RPG faux pas and tell you are playing it wrong. With that said, I will no longer discourage players from playing the illusionist discipline. In fact, I cannot wait to see one in one of my games. Good job to Josh and his team for doing the improbable and changing my mind. That's got to be worth some legend points right there. Wow, this is a long video. I want to thank Mystic Legion for his encouragement in convincing me to do a video on the illusionist. He wasn't alone, but I'll call him the ringleader of the illusionist cabal that coaxed me into this. Ultimately, I'm glad they did. My mind was truly changed. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this 3rd video in my series that will eventually cover all the primary disciplines in the Earthdawn setting. Please let me know what you think of this episode, the illusionist discipline, and the Earthdawn setting as a whole. If you have a discipline you really want me to cover sooner rather than later, let me know so I can move it to the top of my list. Unless comments, tweets, or Discord discussions change my mind, you can count on the Beastmaster to be next. If you like this video, please subscribe to Legion of the channel. It helps us out more than you can know. Also, mash that bell icon so you can be notified when new videos are uploaded. Finally, I want to let you know about the Legion Myth weekly live stream every Saturday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on twitch.tv/LegionMyth. See the description below for the link. Our hosts Garthon and Heathen Dog provide anime reviews, tabletop gaming fundamentals, comic book reviews, and other nerd topics that should interest you. If you can't catch them live, you can always watch past episodes on the Legion Myth YouTube channel. And with that, I will see you next time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.